Hi and welcome to MagicGatheringStrat. I am Dan and today we are going to talk about blue-black Trinket Control, because I and my friend Pauper Chat has played 1099 matches with the deck. And to help me with this I have on the line Pauper Chat. Hi.
Hello Dan, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine, how are you?
I'm great.
Let's talk about blue-black Trinket.
Absolutely.
As we said before, the deck was created in May 2012. It's based on DC Casanuda's deck. He has been playing this for some time and has several results with the
Yes.
deck. We did some changes to the deck.
Yes, we did some changes to the deck, hopefully to the better. I'm pretty convinced it's to the better for the most part anyway. So, and I really like the deck the way it is now.
Yeah, me too. And we're going to look at every matchup, and I'm going to go through the matchups in the order of how much we win against them. So we will begin with the matchups where we win all the time, and we'll end up with the problem matchups at the end.
Yes.
And these are our win rates. And there is a little problem here. It seems that you are winning much more than I am.
Is that really a problem?
It's a problem for me, because I like to win as much as you do.
Fat chance.
I have only one excuse that could work. I have played more tournaments than you have, so I might have a little better opposition.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. That might actually account for several percent of this, or maybe even the whole thing. But I don't. It's hard to tell though. But
I have been watching you play, and I think that there's definitely a skill difference here, and I think that's a very important thing about this deck. That blue-black Trinket Control rewards skill.
absolutely.
If you're focused, if you really think through your decisions, go back and evaluate your games, you will get better.
Yes, absolutely. And I have seen you play, and I have seen that you sometimes make mistakes. I also make mistakes sometimes, but very seldom, and less seldom than you. So there might be some percentage here that's because I make less mistakes than you, and then some percentage that's because you play more tournaments than me.
And this will become quite apparent in the matchups where we have big differences as well.
Yes,
so I'll
absolutely.
come back to that.
hmm
And you also played 627 matches, which is quite an achievement.
Yes, why don't you get a life and so on?
I'm only going to talk about matchups where we have 10 or more matches.
That makes sense.
And also the deck definitions may have changed during this, it's almost a year now. And I'll address that when I think of it. And of course there will be decks that are not allowed anymore in this list. But I chose to include them because it's the first time we're doing this. And when we reach the 2000 matches point, I might cut them out.
Absolutely. That makes sense.
So, here is the best matchup we have. We have an 87-0 against rogue decks.
Yes, it's. I love it how you define that. A rogue deck as,
So
as
actually, a rogue deck is any deck that is not in daily events very often, and that has not ever beaten us. And of course, this makes 100% win percentage a part of the definition.
Yes.
But I think there's an important point there, actually. There are a lot of decks that blue-black Trinket Control just beats.
Yes.
Like any random creature deck has a very hard time.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of people like to build their own decks, and obviously they won't be tuned, and they will have a lower amount of power, so to say, lower amount of power cards in the deck, and they will try other cards than the usual cards that are slightly less powerful. That will give us more time and to defend ourselves, and we will have more card advantage than they have because our card advantage cards are better. We have more flexibility. So a lot of the times it's just that we're on a different power level than them. And also the people that play the rogue decks are oftentimes people that don't care that they don't play it that seriously, really.
True.
So I think that's an issue too.
I think there's also an important point here. If you're playing a paper Pauper tournament that is not as where the people don't have as finely tuned decks as they have in daily events, or if you play a player run event, Blue-black Trinket Control becomes an even better choice than in the dailies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't contemplated those percentages, so I'll believe you if you say that.
So let's go to the real matchups.
That makes sense.
Our best matchup that actually this deck is doing 4 O's and 3 1s quite frequently now.
Yeah.
Actually, if I look at the MTGO stats and their 12 top decks now, they collect stats from the last 12 days, and Elves are number 10. Elves is the number 10 deck.
Okay.
And this is a massacre. We are 89% to win, and we should lose like 11% of games to mulligans or...
Yeah, well, matches, really. Yeah, we lose 11% of the matches, and I guess those are games where we don't get the Crypt Rat the whole team away, which we usually do. I mean,
often we have enough removal to just destroy the Elves, even if some Elves live.
Yes, absolutely. They need a critical mass. They can't have just 2 or 3 elves out. They need 4 or 5 elves or something to get to that critical mass where they have to do really cool things with the Timberwatch Elf and Well-Wishers or whatnot. And we have so much removal that we can usually keep them down. And if they just play a creature every turn, we can usually kill that creature every turn. And if they play a massive amount of creatures, we can often kill 5 or 8 or 10 creatures with just 1 Crypt Rat. So it's really hard for them. And as an elf, if I were playing elves, I wouldn't really know what to do, because you have these both things, both the spot removal and the Crypt Rats. I mean, I played a guy the other week that had the 2 Spider Silk armors in play, and he had 3 rancors. Every time he played a creature, it was huge, but I just kept killing it with Crypt Rats, and I had the life staff in place, so I could just gain back the life immediately, and eventually just died from the Crypt Rats. And what do you do? I mean, Spider Silk armor works against Electrickery and stuff like that if you play elf deck, but the Crypt Rats is enough to kill them anyway.
I played against Deluxeicoff in a daily event that is on video on this channel recently, and after I beat him with his elf deck, he said that he would probably not play the elf deck unless he had 4 of... And I forgot the name of the card. It's 1 green, 1 colorless, regenerate every creature.
Okay, I don't know which card he's talking about either, but that...
There is such a card, but I don't remember the name.
Okay. Yeah, well, leave that for the elf walkthrough then.
That would have surprised me a lot.
Yeah, me too, because I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've heard legends about it.
Yeah.
Okay, enough with elves. You are going to kick the ass of elves if you play this deck. Yes. Elves will be in trouble. Elrond and his team will be running for the hills.
Absolutely. Okay, then we have Tortured Existence.
Yeah, this is also a massacre. Tortured Existence will... talk about Tortured Existence. Power
yeah, even... I mean, they have the graveyard recursion thing with the feature card Tortured Existence, of course. But you have enough card advantage in your deck that you can actually beat them even without removing exiling their graveyard. And then if you exile their graveyard, they just die. So it's a very, very good matchup for us. They're not that threatening, really. Although they can... Yeah.
The effect of Nihil Spellbomb and 3 Trinket Mages plus Bajuka Bog and 4 Dimir Aqueducts makes for 9 graveyard removal effects, basically. So
potentially, yes.
It's a nightmare for Tortured Existence. It's a Tortured Existence for Tortured Existence.
Ha! Ha!
Oh, no. This might surprise some people. We have an 85% match win against Mono Black Control. And I was actually 26-0 until I finally lost the tournament match against Mono Black Control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this matchup it's awesome because we have the Trinket Mage and the Muldrifters is the big difference. And the Muldrifters are awesome, obviously, because you get to draw 2 cards. And what do they have? They have
Phyrexian Ragers and Ravenous Rats.
Exactly. But Muldrifters draw 2 cards. That's twice as many cards as the Ragers.
Yes.
And we have the Grim Harvester recurred, and they usually play other recurring stuff. And also the life staffs. I bring in another life staff against the Mono Black Control deck because they can't get rid of it. And then you can do the Crypt Rat shenanigans back and forth. They also have Crypt Rats, of course. But since you gain 6 life every time a creature comes into play and dies, basically, then you're going to win that event. They have both Tendrils and Corrupt, so they can gain a lot of life, but the Silver Life Staff can usually gain even more life. So then it comes down to attrition, and
Yep.
you win that game eventually.
And you will see mono black control decks that are more geared towards beating creatures decks. They don't play corrupts, they don't play crypt rats, and then it becomes just a walk in the park.
Yeah, when you do lose to NBC, it's usually because they play a bunch of shitting rats and ragers and stuff, and then you play Signing Blood on yourself twice, and then you don't fight the sweepers. You have to trade 1-for-1 with creatures. And they are able to kill you before you get the whole Life Staff, Grim Harvest, random creature thing going.
Yeah.
So you can lose to it, obviously, but usually you don't.
It feels very much like we are an upgraded version of their deck.
Absolutely.
And I think there are many reasons not to play Mono Black Control right now, and I think Blue Black Trinket Control is one of the big reasons that if you like Mono Black Control, you should play this deck instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe some people have realized this because there's not many people playing NBC anymore. It used to be a CEO NBC back a few years ago, but
it actually just appeared as number 12 on MTGO stats.
Oh, okay.
It kicked out Infect.
Yeah, but still, as you can hear, it's not even top 10.
Yeah, 3%.
Yeah.
So that's not much.
That's like one person playing it a couple of times or something.
Yeah. So on to the next matchup, and that is any form of blue-black control that is not Trinket, it's not Ninja Teachings, and it's not Dimir Post. So it's not based on Mystical Teachings, Ninja of the Deep Hours, or the Cloud Post setup. And there are plenty of blue-black control decks out there, actually, even in tournaments, that there are a lot of ways to build a blue-black control deck. But if they don't build it according to these three formulas, they are pretty much without a chance. They have about the same chance as a mono-black control deck has.
Yeah, it's just they have chosen a different route, and that route isn't as powerful as the route that we have chosen. They have less powerful cards, and yeah, I don't really understand. I don't really understand why you choose this deck, but I guess if you look at it from far away, you see, oh, there's a lot of different cards that looks cool. But the other ways to play blue-black is so much better than this random control deck. So
yeah, and the thing they do most often is they are 50% blue, 50% black. They try to have counter spells. They need 2 blue mana for that. Their card draw is slower.
They try to play Tendrils of Decay also, and you have to have so much blue and black mana. It gets really confusing for them.
And they're just not fast enough to deal with the aggro decks either. So
yeah,
let's leave them and go on to Infect. We didn't like that Invigorate was banned because we loved Invigorates.
Yes, because we love to play against Infect because the creatures are too small, they just die, and sometimes they can save it with Invigorate and stuff, but then we just kill them again because that's how good we are at killing tiny creatures.
And Fume Spitter and Tragic Spits are all-stars here. If you have a way to kill a first turn Glistener Elf, it will become very hard, especially for the 14 creature Infect decks.
Yes, absolutely. And you should when you play against Infect, you should try to kill it as soon as possible. Some people like to wait until they attack, and then you play Tragic Slip or something on the creature. Then you're just going to pump it in response and kill you. So you can wait with the Addicts though, but don't try to wait with the Tragic Slips until their turn. Try to kill them as soon as possible, and just killing the creatures as soon as possible. It's pretty easy to do most of the time, and just do it, and then they just die because they don't have enough creatures.
Very true. There's also sometimes happened to me in tournaments that maybe I Ogre of Skulls pre-sideboard, and at the beginning of my turn, and then I attack, and then I try to Tragic Slip something, and they have forgotten that Ogre of Skulls died in the beginning of the turn, so they will actually try to grow themselves out of danger.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
It happens to me too.
This I played a lot of Infect before I started playing Blue Black Trinket Control. It was when I ran into DC Casanuda that I I was so scared this matchup. When he went and got Executioner Capsule and I read that card the first time, I was like, what the fuck, now we can block and then
Yeah.
they will Capsule.
Oh.
So this is a very, very hard matchup for Infect, and now without Invigorate, you're probably not ensured a kill very often, even if you get to resolve first turn Glistener Elf.
Yeah.
And that means that we have another turn in which to cast a Trinket Mage or do something nasty.
Mm-hmm.
So poor Infect.
Yes.
Another deck that we tend to crush, which we are happy about right now because it's actually number 1 in the metagame.
Wow.
And that came out of nowhere. I didn't know that their Storm matchup was that bad. But it rears its ugly head every now and then. And here is Affinity.
Yeah, it's. I can understand the fascination with Affinity, or even the affinity for the Affinity. Because I mean, sometimes you just get the God draw and you play just lots of frogs and Mirror Enforcers and whatever, or sometimes you play Atog plus Fling and do lots and lots and lots of damage. But well, when I started playing the Trinket deck, I thought that I was invincible against Affinity. I just kept beating them. I had like 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know, lots and lots of matches that I won against them. But then eventually I figured out, okay, I can actually lose the Affinity. And sometimes you get overwhelmed when you get a slow draw and they get a fast draw, they can overwhelm you. But probably most of the time when they beat me with Atog plus Fling.
Yes.
That's the big killer, because you can usually keep the creatures clear, but...
And that's the one time I miss counterspells.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even a Hydroblast would be awesome in that situation, but...
Yes.
But as you can see, most of the time we beat them anyway, even though sometimes they can just Atog Fling you.
And it needs to be stressed that if they don't have Fling, absolutely if they don't have Atog, this becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. There was another Affinity version. They used lots of Russian knowledges.
Yeah.
And I played against it, and he drew 7 cards off his Mirror Enforcer Russian knowledge combo. And I figured, oh, I'm cooked. And then I figured, no, wait a minute, he doesn't have Atog Fling. I'm going to win anyway. And so I did. Even though he drew 7 cards right there. So the Atog Fling, that's the one thing to be afraid of.
And here's also the first big difference between our numbers. I seem to be doing something wrong against Affinity.
Yeah, and I haven't watched you play against Affinity, so I don't know exactly what you're doing wrong.
We should probably try to do a video of you playing against Affinity at some time.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. I have played 45 matches, and you have played 30 matches. That seems like it should be enough of a.
I think this is statistically significant. Yes, that.
Yeah, because we have this 13.3% difference.
Yes.
So you're probably right. It might just. It's hard to tell exactly what's happening, why there is a difference, but yeah.
I think I often don't. Maybe I don't prepare enough for the Atog Fling, and I'm surprised by it.
It's really hard to prepare though against Atog Fling.
Yeah.
I would like to too, but usually, it comes out late and they have 10 lands, 10 artifacts in play or something, and then just shoot you for 20 plus, and that's really hard to save up 20 life.
What about Disciple of the Vault? Do you kill him as soon as you can?
Yes, I kill him as soon as I can, because together with Atog, sometimes they just kill you with Disciple plus Atog. So yeah, I'm afraid of him as well. If I have the option of killing Disciple of the Vault or Frogmite, I'll kill the Disciple of the Vault, for example.
Yeah. I've seen versions using Reaping the Graves too in the sideboard, and that was much harder as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen that actually, but that might be good.
It was very good against us.
Yeah, it should be good against us. So then maybe they win a little bit more than the rush.
But still, having said all of that, it's still a very good matchup.
Yeah, even with Reaping the Graves, we're still going to beat them most of the time.
Yes. The next deck in our list is Ninja Teachings. This is a deck that's currently out of fashion, but it will appear from time to time. There are a lot of people that played Pauper 2-3 years ago that come back and play Ninja Teachings. It's a blue-black control deck. It has 4 mystical teachings. It has 4 Ninja of the Deep Hours. So it's trying to use the 2-for-1 creatures like Shittering Rats and stuff like that. Ravenous Rats, Liliana Spectre. And then cast a Ninja of the Deep Hours, get extra cards, and recast their 2-for-1 creature. They are very slow.
Yes, that's I mean, we're not really a beatdown deck, but sometimes against this deck we're probably faster. But I'm not sure if that's the way we're beating them, or probably it's the Grim Harvest thing that we win by attrition. That's probably the way we beat them.
Yeah, they are geared towards. They love Agony Warp for some reason, and so they are geared towards beating aggro decks a bit. So they will stop our aggression. Quite easily, but
it's you say okay, so we have 74%. It's an easy match, we win. No, not that easy. It's you have to work for it. You have to play. You have to. It's usually long games where eventually somebody runs out of cards and the other guy can overwhelm, and usually you're the one that can run out the other guy of cards using Grim Harvest as a key late game card. But
if they get to resolve multiple mystical teachings, you are in trouble.
Yeah, or you get to swing with ninjas on a post. So you can lose to it. Well, I can lose to it at least. You seem to be better than me at playing against it.
I actually tried playing it because I loved all the synergies that were in the deck, but I couldn't beat Delver or Stompy with ninja teachings. It was just so slow.
Yeah, I believe you absolutely. That's what strikes me too. That it's too slow. But it's not. I mean, it's just a little slower. It's slower than Trinket deck, but the Trinket deck isn't that fast on the attack. It's just fast on the defense, so to say. So we can defend ourselves really quickly, but that doesn't matter against Ninja Teachings.
It's quite an interesting matchup, actually. There's a lot of blue-black control going on.
Yeah, but I can understand. I mean, if some people don't like playing control against control, and then they're going to hate this matchup.
Yes.
Because it takes a long time.
But it is a lot more fun than the Izzet Post matchup that we'll come back to a bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this match, you seem to be a lot better than me at beating Ninja Teachings. But here the sample size is so small that I'm not sure I can really rely on it.
No, I don't think there's any significance there.
Yeah, so let's leave that.
Yeah. Let's go on to White Weenie. They have a somewhat higher chance to beat us than Affinity, but it's not big.
No, we'll beat them most of the time. We get card advantage with the Crypt Rats and the Life Staffs, and sometimes they overwhelm you with a quick mass, with a big horde of creatures. Sometimes they'll kill you with the Guardian of the Guild Pact, the 2/3 for 4 mana that with protection. Usually you can raise that actually when you kill all the other creatures. If they get Bone Splitter. If they have Bone Splitter and put it on that, it's get harder to raise, of course. But if you have like double Life Staff and Fume Splitter and Grim Harvest, you can gain 6 life each turn, and hopefully you can also attack them a little bit, so you can raise it that way. But then, of course, what you want to do is play Edict or Gef's Verdict on their Guild Pact dude to kill that.
Yes.
And then you have lots of removal for his other guys. So usually you're able to kill all his guys and win that way. At least, yeah.
One thing they have is all these returning creatures that can sometimes be a problem, like Loyal Cathar and Doom Traveler.
Yeah, so then sometimes you have to kill them twice. The Crypt Rat, as I meant, the Crypt Rats is great for killing the Doom Travelers because you can activate it for 1 point and then a response activate for 1 more point. Then the Doom Traveler dies and it comes back with a token, and then it walks right into the other Crypt Rat point and they die again. So.
Yeah.
It doesn't work against the Loyal Cathar though. But it works against that.
No. And I'm gonna miss Echoing Decaying for Squadron Hawks.
Yeah, you have to settle for Crypt Rats.
Yeah. And actually White Weenie is out of the metagame. It's not on the top 12 list. It's gone away. Apparently it had a very good Infect matchup, and its Storm matchup were perhaps the best of the aggro decks, but now it's gone.
And both of those was because of Standard Bearer, right?
Yeah, and Suture Priest.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I think White Weenie will be back for sure, and if it is, you will be ready with the blue-black Trinket Control.
Absolutely.
So these are still very easy matchups, and here comes another easy matchup. And this might surprise a lot of people. This is right now the number 2 deck in the meta. It's Delver. And it has been number 1 many times.
Yeah, and it's a very good deck. And against some decks, the slower decks, they just lose because this is basically fish. It's a deck with the creatures and counters, small creatures and counters, and it's very good against slow control decks. And it's usually also very good against combo decks. It's not so strong against aggro decks, and not so strong against mid-range control decks, which is what we're playing with this blue-black trinket deck. We can kill the creatures too fast. If we were slower, they might be able to counter our creature removal, but our creature removal is so fast that we can kill the creatures, and then we kill the other creatures, and then more creatures, and then eventually we get card advantage and beaten that way.
Yeah, if you can survive if you can get rid of the turn 1 Delver or the turn 2 or 3 Ninja,
yes,
you are
absolutely.
pretty well off.
Yeah, the Ninja is their key card. That's the way they get card advantage. Don't let them Ninja. If you kill all the other creatures, they have to play the Ninja for 4 mana, then you kill that as well. That's the plan.
I do have a problem with these figures.
I don't have a problem with these figures. No, I do too. It's well, let's say it's interesting. I mean, this you have to say this is significant statistically.
It's definitely significant, and it's not. I was very surprised when I put together the numbers because I didn't feel that I had a bad matchup in Delver.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised when I saw my 81% because that's what it feels like. But your 60.9%, that's kind of low.
Yeah, it is, and I think actually. A lot of my losses comes from the tournament practice room, which makes it even stranger.
That's where I hang, so I should have been playing the same people.
Yeah. Because in tournaments I have won. I've beaten Messel twice, and it's most of the losses are from the tournament practice room, which is weird.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. It's, I mean. Okay, so some of it, you can attribute some of it to luck, but there's so many matches.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of way we're playing it differently also, I think.
I think what could be the case is that in the tournament practice room I might relax a little, and that small amount of relaxation is what loses the edge. So then Delver can get through something or do something that I didn't think about, and so focus is very, very necessary. Delver will kill you if they are allowed.
Yeah, but also, it's. I think that might be it then. Or, well, there might be other explanations as well. Also, that I think I played more blue-black Trinket Control than you lately, and lately it seems that some of the Delver decks have taken out Days and brought in the Piracy Charm instead.
Yes, and that sucks against us.
That sucks against us. Because
we really fear Days. Yep, sorry.
Yeah, we really fear because exactly, because when often when they win, it feels like they play first turn Delver, and you play some tapped land or something, and then second turn Ninja, or usually they play first turn Delver, and you play a swamp, and you try to kill the first turn Delver, and they Daze it, and then they attack you, and then you don't have a follow up on the second turn, and then they play Ninja. And then on the third turn or something, you try to kill the Ninja and Daze it again. So they get the card advantage. And usually you're able to kill the creatures, kill the Ninja, if they don't have Daze. But if you have Daze, they can get it through. And
yes.
Well, of course, I feel like either you lose that way or you lose because you just draw badly.
I think that I'm actually, I think, even more afraid of the first turn Delver that flips than I am of Ninja, because you have so many ways to get rid of Ninja and everybody can block him, and but the first turn Delver that flips and is then protected by, especially if they play like Cloud of Fairies and have a spell status sprite on turn 2.
Yeah. Well, I worry less about the 3-point damage than the one card that gets from the Ninja. So this might be a difference between us than that.
But my point is that the Ninja is so much harder to get in for Delver than the first turn Delver.
That is true. Okay, let's go with that then.
I have often mulliganed until I have removal for the first turn Delver. That might be a mistake then. But I've been mulliganing till I find, at least once, hoping to find Fume Spitter or a Tragic Slip.
So the truth comes out. I haven't been mulliganing as aggressively as you have been doing then.
That might be a difference.
Yeah, I trust in my deck to bring me the stuff. Although I mean, you usually have removal in your hand, or
sometimes Delver just have these god draws where you can't beat them, and
yeah. But I claim that in order for them to have the god draw, they need days somewhere along the line. Some people don't play days anymore, so then they can't have the god draw.
True. But I think this single statistic, the 72% against Delver, is, and it should obviously be higher if I was a better player. This is one of the biggest arguments for playing Blue-Black Trinket Control. Yeah,
I agree, absolutely.
And it's the best of the top matchups if Affinity is not counted as a top deck. But it is number one right now. So, but if you have a great matchup against number one and number two in the metagame, you are probably quite well off.
Absolutely.
The next deck is DelverFiend, and we have the same win percentage, but they are very different matches.
Yeah, like you told me the other day, this is called Voltron, the Voltron deck, where you try to build one big creatures and win in one big turn.
Yes, just like Infect and Hexproof, you try to build one giant guy that can win the game.
The same problem as Infect. They have to have a creature in play in order to win, and we're pretty good at avoiding that by killing their creatures. Or at least I am, as I can see from the statistics.
I wonder if I'm mulliganing too aggressively here too.
I don't know though, but this is a much smaller sample size than the one we talked about. So maybe you'll be able to, let's see, if you can go 12-1, you'll be at the same point as me.
Okay, I'll do that. This deck has a lot going for it right now because it's the fastest combo deck in the format, and it has a very good matchup against the Temporal Fissure decks and against Stompy. So I expect to see more of DelverFiend. It's not on the top 12 list right now.
Oh, okay, so but it's not on the top 12, but it has a bullet, so it's moving up.
Okay, let's go on to Goblins, and here is the biggest difference between our two percentages. What the hell?
Yeah, you tell me, man. All I can say is sample size. If you can win 15 matches in a row here, you.
And this is like I was like 2-5 at the point, and you were like, "Oh, Goblins are so easy," and I was like, "Oh, what?"
Yeah, you told me, "Oh, they keep recurring the Death Spark," and I was like, "What's Death Spark?" No, I knew what Death Spark was, but I said, "Why they don't play Death Spark?" So you played against a lot more decks with Death Spark than me.
Yeah, I think if you're playing Goblins, you should be playing Death Spark.
I agree, and I have since then played against decks with Death Spark, and I usually beat them anyway.
Yeah. So last time I beat one in the daily, so.
I refuse to accept the 80% versus 50%, and that can't. No, you have to play more.
Yes, I have to play Goblins more, and it's actually quite strange having to run into Goblins more because it's there. It's the number 6 in the metagame, 5.7% of decks in the daily events right now.
Yeah.
So practicing the Goblin matchup is definitely important.
Yes.
But it's still a very good matchup then, if you look at the combined statistics.
Yeah, absolutely. But they can overwhelm you sometimes. But yes, it's most of the time you'll beat them, and it's also fun to trade creatures with creatures, and then you kill all the other creatures with crit rats, and then you gain lots of life, and eventually they start crying, and you kill them then.
One danger with Goblins is their burn package. It's what gives them more reach than the other aggro decks. And as you will find, we are vulnerable to burn, given that we have no counterspells.
Yes, that is true. And also, well, they also have the Bushwhacker. If sometimes they have some random Goblins out and you feel pretty safe, and then you play Bushwhacker, and every creature gets +1/+0, and then they can actually kill you that way. So that's a danger also. But the burn package, yes. I mean, if you keep the board clear of creatures, you don't have to worry about the Bushwhacker because it only hits you for 2. But
yeah. And if people that don't play Fire Blast, I'm also much happier to play. So if they don't have Fire Blast or Death Spark, I'm very happy. The next matchup is the Hexproof deck.
Yes, and it's a
I hope they don't play 4 Bond Beetles, that doesn't catch on.
okay. You're afraid of the Bond Beetles.
Yes, because we have a pretty good matchup here because of all our edicts
Yeah,
and cripples.
yeah, yeah. But they play Bond Beetle main deck, right? So then you can use Tragic Slip or Fume Spitter to kill the Bond Beetle, and then you can edict the other stuff, or you can just Crypt Rat and kill everything that unless it's really really big.
Yes.
And also, when you're sideboarding against Hexproof, you usually end up with some creature removal in the deck anyway, because you can't board out all the creature removal. You have so much, and you don't know if they're going to keep the aura gnarled in it or not.
Yes.
So then when they bring out, I'm not that afraid of it. I haven't played against it though, so maybe you're right, but I still think we're up. I still think we're ahead of them.
Yes, and from what I understood from Deluxeicoff, he is not happy to play this deck.
Yeah, I think he's right.
Because we have a lot of ways to deal with his creatures that, for example, Izzet Post doesn't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely. I think you're right about that. I think he's right about that.
And you will often run into this, that some of the sideboard measures people have against Izzet Post are useful against us. And some of the things they have against Post, everybody thinks about Post as the main control deck because it is. And sometimes we are hurt by what people bring in to protect themselves from Izzet Post.
Are you thinking about land destruction?
Yes.
Yes, we're hurt by that. They're hurt by it also. We're both hurt by it. But the thing to remember though about land destruction is that if you have a deck, a aggressive deck, and then you take out like 4 creatures and bring in 4 land destruction spells, you're not gonna be able to hit as hard because you're gonna have land destruction spells. And mid game and late game, destroying 1 land is not that big of an impact. That usually a creature can be a bigger impact.
Yes.
So even though so it really sucks to have your Dimir Aqueducts killed. At least his deck became worse now because he started playing just random land destruction spell. I mean, a learning that I learned back in before the dawn of time, back in 94, 95, is that if you're going to play land destruction, play like 16 or something so that they really get mana host. Don't play 4 or 8 because that's just going to ruin your deck, and they're going to have enough mana to play most of their spells anyway. That might not be. I mean, if you're playing against Post, the actual card is so powerful that you want to destroy that card, and if you destroy that card, you might remove a bunch of mana from them. So I'm not saying it's wrong to bring in land destruction against that, but you're diluting your own deck as well.
Very true. Enough about Hexproof. Let's move down the scale to the even harder matchups. This is mono blue control, and it's mono blue control with out Posts. So this is the classic new plan deck. Basically, you play 8 to 12 creatures and a lot of counter spells.
Yeah, and this deck, as you can see here, I have 50% and you have 71%, but the sample size is so small, so we can't really draw any conclusions from this. And so, also the 62%, we're not really sure about that either. We probably beat them, but we can't even be sure about that.
What mono blue control has going on that other control decks don't have is that their card draw actually matches ours. They have a lot of card draw compared to Post or mono black control.
Yes, but we also have card draw, and we also have lots of discard.
Yes.
And so they have counters and card draw, and we have discard and card draw.
And these are horrible matches. They are really long, and you have to mind the clock if you're playing in a tournament.
They are lovely matches.
And actually,
they have to mind the clock.
New Plan has the distinct honor of actually being the only person that beat me on the clock in a tournament. He was playing his Post version of this deck. But yeah, this deck is a very complicated control on control matchup.
And that must be humiliating because we're playing more of a tap out deck than they are. We can tap out more and be done more, and they have to play more spells and tap more mana. So they should take more time to play their spells than we have to play our spells.
Yes.
So they should have less time. But the fact that he was able to play faster than you, that's impressive.
Yes, because a long experience in playing mono blue.
Yeah, you're a fast player. That's surprising.
And I have long experience in playing blue black trinket.
Yeah. Very impressive.
So practice this matchup, otherwise it will kill your clock.
Yeah.
Let's go to even harder matchups, but we're still winning.
Yeah. Or at least I am.
Yeah, at least you are. There's a big difference here. And at one time I was convinced that Dimir Post, blue-black Cloud Post control decks were harder to win against than blue-red Cloud Post
And
decks.
I told you it was easier, or the same.
Yes, and it's pretty similar actually, so I think the games play out very, very similarly.
I think you have only played 9 matches, so the sample size is too small for us to see if you're playing worse than me. But the 61%, I think it has some kind of statistical significance at least that we're going to beat them. But it's a hard match where you have to play a lot of spells, not make many mistakes, and eventually you're going to grind out to win most of the time, but often you lose. So
I find that when I win, it's either because we grind them out with Grim Harvest, or because we actually manage to discard them so much that we can overrun them with creatures very early.
Yes.
And that is hard to do against Izzet Post.
It happens against Izzet Post as well, but you're probably right about that. Yeah, sometimes you can overwhelm them. It feels strange to be the aggro deck, but they don't have lots of sweepers. So if you play lots of creatures, it's hard for them to. They have to kill the creatures one by one oftentimes.
Yes. So let's move on to the beast itself. This is the number one question I receive about blue-black Trinket Control. Oh hey, I tried your deck, it's awesome, but what do you do against Cloud Post?
Yeah.
And that was me in late May. I came to Power T here and said, oh, Izzet Cloud Post is beating me.
And I said, oh, I'm beating Izzet Cloud Post.
Yes. So how do you do it?
Now I had 68%. I had even more before. Izzet Cloud Post seemed like a really easy matchup. Now I realize it's not. It's still a good matchup, but not that great. How do I beat him? Well, it's hard to tell really. Sometimes you win by time, but most of the time you're able to squeeze out the win some other way. What you have to do is make them discard and then discard some more. You can't let them set up their whole combo to reach critical mass with all the Cloud Posts and the Glimmer Posts, so they get infinite mana basically, because that's how they win. And on how they win, the way they win, I mean, sometimes they can just win by random beatdown with Muldrifters, but that's not really an issue. They usually have 3 win conditions. It's the Ulamog and the Capsize and the Rolling Thunder. Or, well, sometimes they also have the Ghostly Flicker for the Monic Wall and something else. But that's not really a win condition, it's just a way to draw lots and lots of cards, but it feels like a win condition. But then the Ulamog you can usually deal with, because even if you sideboard out creature removal against them, you still have some left, and you can usually kill it that way. Especially if you have discarded your old hands so that you can't counter your capsule or whatever. The Capsize is also a problem. After a while they can start capsizing multiple lands per turn. One way to get around that is to play lots and lots of creatures, so they have to start bouncing your creatures, and then killing your own creature in response to Capsize become a really good option, because that will counter their Capsize to get rid of that. You're 2 for 1 yourself, but it's often worth it.
Yes.
And you also have discards, so you can make them discard the Capsize. So it's not as big a problem as the Rolling Thunder, because the Rolling Thunder, it can just lie around somewhere in their deck and they keep playing more and more lands, and then when they get the Rolling Thunder, you just play it immediately, and that way you don't have a chance to discard it and make them discard it, and you don't have any counters. And if they have enough land, they can Rolling Thunder you for 20 or even more, 30 or sometimes. So that's really hard to stop. So that's how they win, but you have to make them discard lots and put a reasonable clock on them. That's how you...
One thing I've changed in my game against Izzet Post is that I am aware of the fact that I am the control deck in the matchup, and that Izzet Post needs to be the aggressor. And most Post players will not... they don't understand this.
Yeah.
Because their defense is very strong, our defense is very strong, but their aggressive capability, their offense, it's very limited.
Yeah.
They need to win by these ways that you say, and even capsize will not be a win, because they will sit there and capsize you for 10 minutes, and then they lose on the clock.
Yeah, absolutely. But that usually enables them to win on random Muldrifter beatdown or something. Otherwise, they can't win on that.
So what I often is like find their win condition and make them discard it, and then destroy the graveyard. And then suddenly they are helpless.
Yeah, it's exactly. You have to destroy everything, make them discard everything, and then they run out of resources. And it works. Oftentimes it works, but not always.
There are also a very big difference between Izzet Post players, the really good ones, and the sort of newer players. Because that, for example, killing your own creature to avoid capsize, it's surprising how often that works.
Yeah.
And it's a good way out of the capsize lock.
Exactly. Well, sometimes I'm sure good players will do it also because they have to, but some players will do it when they don't have to, and then then their skill level shows.
Yes, and then we've seen like people playing 2 Rolling Thunders, but they stopped doing that now.
Yeah, that's even trickier because before you could if they draw it early, you can make them discard it, and then you use a Bayuka Bog or something to exile the card, and they're like, oh, now they can't really win, unless they have like I said, they have the other win conditions, but they're not as solid. And like you said, the capsize, they oftentimes time out because of their own capsize.
Yeah. The best play against this Cloudpost is to swamp duress, find a first turn, and find Rolling Thunder and discard it.
Yeah,
that's very good.
And then Bayuka Bog turn too.
But you will need... Yeah, of course.
No, you duress his capsize, and then you can play Bayuka Bog on turn.
You will have to practice this matchup. This is a very important matchup to practice. And remember that if you practice it, you will have practice in the matchup, whereas the Cloudpost player will not, because he won't have spent much time preparing for blue-black Trinket Control.
Yes.
But you have to spend a lot of time preparing for Cloudpost. So this is perhaps the matchup where putting in time pays off the most.
Yes, absolutely. Another thing I forgot to mention is that you brushed on it, but I have to stress it again, that they are the beatdown. If you usually you don't want to trade life with them. Sometimes you have a Crypt Rat out, and you're like, okay, so I was going to Crypt Rat for 2 to kill his Muldrifter, or going to Crypt Rat for 7. And usually I only Crypt Rat for 2, because they, with their Dimir Post, they usually gain more life than me. So let's say we're both at 20, so we want to put us both at 18 or 13. Oh, then I go with 18.
Yes.
But of course, if I have lots more life than them, then I can start Crypt Ratting to kill them.
Yes. And often I find that life staff will make a difference between it, because it can put you out of thunder range.
I usually find that it doesn't work, but sometimes it can work. But usually it can't, and sometimes you're like, okay, I'm at 13, he has 20 mana, should I try to use life staff like 4 times? Well, by that time he will have even more mana, so it usually doesn't work, but it can work sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can gain life with life staff in response to his Rolling Thunder and win that way, or survive that way, but that's against really bad players.
I actually did that in a tournament.
Okay.
I fume spitted like an ogre with life staff on it, and he was oh.
Oops. Well played, sir.
I had something else on my mind about Cloudpost, but I forgot it. Do you have anything to add about this matchup?
No, not really.
So let's go on. We are still at the 60% win percentage, so this is still a good matchup. If you're Power T, not if you're Dan.
Yeah. We're talking about,
one word here about Grixis Storm. This deck will not harass you anymore. They will not grapeshot you. They will not empty the warrants. But it was a good matchup. We had a 58% win percentage.
Yeah, usually we would lose the first game, and then you would sideboard heavily, and then you would win the next 2 games.
Or we would get in an Ogre of Skulls and Undying Evil in the first game, because this deck took 3 turns. It went off on turn 3 or 4. So he usually had the time to do something about it.
Yes.
I also found that the way they won against us mostly was Empty the Warrens and not Graveshot.
Oh, I didn't. You made statistics on that?
Yes. And that often we were tapped out when... that will apply even more to the blue-red Storm deck, so I'll come back to that. But we didn't... a lot of people argue that Empty the Warrens shouldn't have been banned because there are answers to it in every color. But... yeah, the Empty the Warrens did a lot of damage, and you could happen that Grappling Farang did 12 goblins against me turn 1 with Grixis.
Wow.
And that's okay. I won't have the time to play Echoing Decay because I had lands that came into play tapped.
Oh.
So I lost. But it still was a good matchup.
I just realized something. Are you 15-3 in this matchup?
No, I'm 15-13. Sorry.
Oh, okay, that explains a lot.
Yes.
It looks like a 3 to me, but okay.
It is a 3. It's a typo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then it is 58%, I guess, or not something else. Oh, okay.
I changed it in real time.
Oh,
let's move on.
Not in my real time.
No. And here is the number 4 deck in the metagame. Recently it was number 1, Stompy. And it's the only aggressive deck that has a chance against us in the long run.
I agree, and these numbers, I am not happy with these numbers. First of all, the 56%. This is an aggressive deck. We're built to battle mainly aggressive decks, and the fact that Stompy can still beat us 44% of the time, that's just compliments to Stompy that they're so strong. It's the best aggro deck out there, and even though we're built to kill them, they still beat us, or at least they beat me. Because they don't beat you, and that's something also I hate.
The one argument I could make here is that I had played Stompy in some dailies. I put in... It's the third most played deck by myself. So there might be an experience with Stompy itself here.
Absolutely. That's a real possibility.
Another factor about Stompy is that Stompy's critical turn is turn 4 or 5. And... by turn 4 or 5, we are still setting up, but we have destroyed all the 1 toughness creatures of other aggressive decks. But Stompy has these creatures that survive, like Silhana Ledgewalker, like Mongrel, like Nettle Sentinel.
Oh, and the guy I hate the most is that wolf guy.
Yes, young wolf.
Yeah. I hate him the most. Unless when I can Crypt Rat for 2 and then the response Crypt Rat for 1.
Yes. That's a nice play.
Yeah, it's the one. Yeah, it's one of few ways to actually get. I mean, usually what you do is you try to block the young wolf with a 2/2 guy. So then because if you don't want to waste removal on young wolf, because you have to spend 2 removal on young wolf, and that's 2 for 1, and I don't like 2 for 1s. But sometimes I'll play the swamp turn 1. He go young wolf, and I go okay. I'll tragic slip it. And then on my turn I'll edict it, or I'll wait until he plays something and then I edict it. And I 2 for 1 myself because I can't let him swing for 1 unopposed with that thing. And maybe I don't have a 2/2 in hand, and I do have lots of ways to gain card advantage anyway. So then it's actually worth it. But Crypt Ratting and Crypt Ratting in response or blocking with a 2/2 is what you want to do against the young wolf, which is the guy I hate the most.
Yeah, you should definitely remember not to Fume Spitter the 2/2 young wolf.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting play because then it becomes Undying again. It comes back again. So
yes, then you just gave him an extra young wolf.
Yeah.
There are also subtle interactions. There's a lot of complicated stuff going on in Stompy, and I find Hunger of the Howl Pack is a card I hate a lot when I play Trinket Control.
Yeah, I agree, especially if they get on a Liliana Ledgewalker.
Yes.
We do have the Muldrifters to block it with, and
but it's harder when it's a 4/4.
Yeah, it's harder. Yeah, at least then you can shump it. But yeah, and it's really tricky. And the other week he had 2 Morbid Hungers on it, so it was a 7/7. I almost won that game anyway, but it's tricky. Or did I win that game? Whatever. But I hate lots of cards in the Stompy deck.
Yes, the Stompy deck is a troublesome aggro deck. But it's still one we win over.
Yeah, at least it's one you win over.
Yeah. My first contact with Deluxeicoff was actually me beating him in the final of a daily with Blue-Black Trinket Control. And he said he chatted with me afterwards and said, all these lands that come into play tap, that will never work. So then we played 2 matches and I beat him 2-0, 2-0.
Oh, nice.
So that was nice.
Yes.
Though there are... I think there's a slight difference between different Stompy builds. For example, while Mongrel is good against many control decks, but it probably doesn't have a lot going for it against Trinket Control.
Oh no, I like seeing that. Yeah, I like seeing that against me. It's not a good creature against me.
Yeah.
Against us. Too expensive and so on. And
so
they throw away cards.
This is also a matchup you need to practice as the Blue-Black Trinket Control player. Put in a lot of time playing against Stompy, because that will be rewarded.
And it's so much better against us than Infect because they have 2 toughness rather than 1 toughness oftentimes.
Yes.
That's a big difference. And then your removal spells, you have to figure out when to play it, especially since they have Vines of Vastwood, so that they can get Hexproof, or is it Shroud you get? Whatever. But sometimes it's Hexproof. Yeah, the thing is that sometimes you want to play this removal spell in response to their growth. But then they might play that Vines thing in response to that, then it becomes Hexproof, and gets +4/+4.
Yes.
So I usually try to kill the creatures on my turn, so I don't have to taste that +4/+4 as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely essential, I think.
The edicts you can hold on a little bit longer though, usually, because they can't really counter that.
Yeah, the problem with the edicts is is Young Wolf, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes when you have, like, let's say they have a Silhana Ledgewalker with a Morbid Hunger or 2 Morbid Hungers and a Young Wolf out, and you have an Edict and say a Crypt Rat or something. You might Crypt Rat to kill a Young Wolf, and then when the Young Wolf is about to come back into play, you play the Edict, so you have to sacrifice the bigger creature, and then the Young Wolf comes back and says, oh, I wanted to be sacrificed, but well, that's too late.
Yeah.
Another trick with the Crypt Rats. Lots of Crypt Rat tricks you can do.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the matchups that are even worse than Stompy, but we are still winning.
Okay, well,
but now we're not winning anymore.
No, that's what I was going to say.
This is the Burn deck. It's covered in Pauper Walkthroughs episode 2. It's currently in the top 12, I think, randomly. Yes, it's number 9 right now.
Oh, well, it's a deck that should beat us because all this burn, we don't have much life gain. We can board in another life gain, the Silver Clive stuff. And the Spinning Darknesses were added recently, so most of the tasting has been done without those. So that's another 3 life we can gain, usually by killing our own creature. But you have to remember also with Spinning Darkness, it can't kill black creatures. You need a Trinket Mage or a Muldrifter in play. Yeah. Or if they are gracious enough to play one of their creatures.
Yes.
Which they often sideboard out against us.
And that's the one happy time you can kill Keldon Marauders and feel good about it.
Yeah, exactly, because you actually gain life rather than lose life on the whole thing. But it's a tricky matchup. But as you can see, even this isn't unwinnable. It's just hard.
And I think Burn's recent rise is because of all the Temporal Fissure decks that they have a big problem with the Burn.
Yeah, I think also Burn is good against Affinity. From my limited testing, Burn is very good against Affinity.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I heard Dog Biscuit mention on the Pauper's Cage episode 21 about Simic Storm that Burn was his worst matchup in the entire metagame.
Because Burn is often quicker than the beatdown decks, and it's not interactive really. People always have some blockers or something to block, or some creature removal to stop creatures, but oftentimes don't have anything to stop the Burn.
And this is our second worst matchup, but we do have a worse matchup. Or do we?
Depends on how you count it. And
yes,
so on.
Familiar Storm, and it's the only Temporal Fissure deck we have played more than 10 matches against.
Yeah,
so
it's still kind of a small sample size here.
And you are doing much better.
Yeah, I think I'm better than you at killing the creatures. And it's a tricky matchup because you have to figure out when to kill the creatures. You don't always kill the creatures as quickly as you can. Sometimes you wait for it, and especially when they play the fairies and they snap the fairies, so they want to bring it back and then untap lots and lots of more lands, and then you kill them in response. But sometimes you kill them on your turn because you have to use the mana efficiently and so on.
Yeah, that might be even more complicated with Familiar Storm compared to the other Temple of Fisher decks that don't have as many creatures. Because you don't really want the familiars to stick around.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you want to kill them. It's also strict to sideboard because you want to bring in the rest and stuff to make them discard their Temple of Fisher, but you want to have lots of creature removal to kill their familiars.
Yes.
In the first wave, and then the second wave, if they try to snap some creature, you want to kill that in response. Those fairies anyway. So it's tricky to sideboard against, and it's tricky to play against. And we're not really sure yet how we do against them, but we're probably less than 50% against them.
It's the 11th deck in the metagame right now.
Let's see.
And we still have a lot of testing to do against Temple of Fisher decks overall.
Yeah, they're fairly new, or their popularity is fairly new. They're pretty few and far between, so we don't get that much testing done against them.
But I'm surprised that this deck is not a bigger factor in the metagame. I thought Familiar Storm would be there would be a lot more of them.
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
So
I don't know why people don't like it.
Someone is kicking their ass, but I don't know who it is.
Maybe it's Burn or something.
Goblins, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, I could see aggressive decks being really good against it, but I mean, they don't have that much defense. They have some walls, but
Yeah.
I could see aggressive decks being really good against it, and that's why they don't do better.
I know they had like a 10% win percentage against Infect. So their sideboard used to be like 9 cards against Infect.
Well, if they're that bad against Infect, they should probably lose to Goblins and Stompy as well.
Yes. And Delver will probably have a good fighting chance against them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's fish against combo. Yeah.
So now we're going into another dead deck, and this is why I think Empty the Warrens was a lot more dangerous than Grapeshot. Because Blue-Red Storm could cast Empty the Warrens on turn 1 or 2. And I have been killed turn 1 at least twice in daily events before I even got to play a land. So this is why I'm happy that Empty the Warrens is gone.
Yes, I'm happy too. It not only did we have a bad percentage against it, also was made for boring games where it didn't really matter what you did, because sometimes even though you were able to play an Ogre on turn 2, they'll kill you before you were able to activate it.
Yes.
And makes sense. I said this before they banned it, that it would make sense for them to ban one or both parts of the combo, because it doesn't make for fun games. And we had to dedicate a lot of our sideboard to try to beat them. But even then, we weren't able to beat Blue-Red Storm, and then there's something wrong with the deck.
Yeah, this deck was a horrible thing to play against.
Yeah, too good and not interactive enough.
Yes.
Makes for no good decks.
But there is actually a matchup that's even worse that we have played more than 10 times, and luckily this deck is nowhere to be seen, because it loses to everything that doesn't have Cloud Post or is Blue-Black Trinket Control, and it's Green Post!
Yeah, Green Post, they have walls and stuff, and they have posts, and they have land destruction and fat creatures. And this combination makes them too slow to beat the aggressive decks, and against other counter decks they can counter the big threats. So it's not good against that either, but it's good against us.
It's really good against us, though the sample size is still small, and you have a couple of victories against them.
Yeah, I don't know. For a while there, I was like 1-5 or something, or even worse, and it feels like it was unwinnable. And then I started winning against them several times.
Yeah.
Not sure what's going on here. So, 31%. I would still think that we're losing, but we can't really tell if it's 25 or 35 or 40 or whatever.
And I don't think this deck will, even if there are many Cloud Post decks now, I don't see it coming back anytime soon.
I don't think it's even that good against Izzet Post and stuff. I'm not sure though. I might be wrong, but
I'm not sure either.
Because if we can counter some of the land destruction, I mean, depends on how many counters they have in the Izzet Post and what kind of counters and so on.
Yeah. So here's a list of all the decks that beat us, and some of them are pretty strange decks that we didn't even know what we were playing. I think the only thing that needs to be mentioned separately here is the 3 other Temporal Fissure decks: Mono Blue Stormpost, Simic Stormpost, and Simic Storm. And they're all quite depressing.
Yes. It's let's hope they don't gain more popularity because we lose to them.
Yes.
And I mean the sample size is small, but still enough, and I played enough against it to see that it's a bad matchup.
Yeah.
So we don't want to play against that.
But if we didn't have any bad matchups, there would be no reason for people to play any other deck than this. Can you tell me why people are not playing Blue-Black Trinket Control?
I think that in Pauper, I mean, Pauper's been around for a while, and it's a static format in that except for a few bannings, it's an eternal format with so many different cards, and you can play. And it's a format where you can keep playing the same deck basically year after year, and it's that way it becomes a casual format. So I think a lot of players, they play the deck once in a while, and they have their own pet deck that they've been playing a lot, and they've been practicing a lot, so they know how to play that deck. And then whether or not that deck is winning or not, maybe they don't care that much. And really, it's a pretty fast format that if you get a really good draw and your opponent gets a really bad draw, you can beat them no matter what you're playing and no matter what they're playing.
Yes.
So there's always a fighting chance, and that way people keep playing bad decks even though they are bad because of the reasons you just mentioned.
Yes.
That's my theory anyway.
I think you're right, and I think that when I asked you this question in August before I started playing this deck in the tournaments, and then the first week I played Blue-Black Trinket Control, I got 3 4-0s in the dailies.
Wow.
And then there was a lot of Blue-Black Trinket Control for a week or two. But people, I think it might be the Cloud Post matchup that scare away people that try the deck as well.
Yeah, that might be it. And you have 25-25. You have 50% against the Cloud Post, and if you have that, it feels. I mean, the games when you lose against Cloud Post takes longer than the games you win.
Yes.
So you spend more time losing against Cloud Post than winning against Cloud Post.
Yes.
And that way, it feels like you're losing to Cloud Post a lot more than you actually are if you're doing your statistics.
Yes.
That's just one of the theories I have for why people don't. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if people don't really have a clue how to play against Cloud Post. I do think you have a clue. I don't think you play as well as I do against Cloud Post, but you absolutely have a clue. And if you're clueless, you're going to have less than 50% against Cloud Post. So then it's going to feel really bad.
And I did lose like 3 or 4 matches in a row against Cloud Post at some point, and I started playing Burn in dailies, because it was such a sinking feeling to sit there and lose for 40 minutes. But it's like you say, the games you lose are longer, and you remember the bad things better than you remember good things.
Yeah, that sucks how that works in Magic or in life.
Yeah.
Let's try to focus on the good things, right?
So don't fear the Cloud Post decks.
Yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't have talked to me after that, you might have discarded the Trinket deck completely,
yes,
wouldn't
absolutely.
you? Because, because you wouldn't have had me to tell you that you can actually win that matchup.
Yes.
So that that's probably what happened to at least some of the people that try the deck then.
Yeah, I think it was a major factor actually.
Mm-hmm.
Or they actually, I think I at least scared away at least one guy who got to play the mirror. But we are not going to talk about the mirror today. The mirror is horrible.
Yeah, if you don't like control on control, and so on.
Yes. Don't talk about the mirror. First rule of Blue-Black Trinket Control. Don't talk about the mirror. Here's the final score. We have a 70% match win against the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a pretty big argument for playing this deck.
Yes. It's a 70%, and and you can beat any deck. Maybe every deck can beat every deck, but this deck definitely has a fighting chance against anything. even the green post and even the Simic posts that might be even worse, you have a fighting chance.
Yes.
I think there are some decks out there that just crushes some other decks and then loses horribly to other decks, and that's not what I want to play. I'd rather have 55% against everything than have 100% against some stuff and 0% against other stuff.
Yeah, then it just becomes rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, so this is more fun that way. And if you like Control at all, try it, and if you don't like Control, try it anyway. As I said before, it's a great fun, and it's if you never played Control and you try this deck out, you're gonna make mistakes. Hopefully you'll have fun, but yeah, some people just hate Control, so then I guess they can't play it. But otherwise, play it.
And if you want to know more about Blue-Black Trinket Control, you should check out the MagicGatheringStrat YouTube channel and mtgostrat.com, where we will be discussing Blue-Black Trinket Control for months to come. And I'll be trying to answer comments there. And that's it for today. Thank you, Power T.
Thank you.